Now that we imported our IGES file and converted it to a solid, let's use the model prep tools to clean this file up, because we want to make sure it's free of errors before we put toolpaths on it. Now I saved this file down to a Mastercam file because if you recall, we brought it in as an IGES file. And now that it's saved, I'm going to start simplifying it. On the Model Prep tab, you'll notice that we have a Simplify Solid option, and this pull-down menu shows 3 utilities we can use: Simplify Solid, Optimize, and Repair Small Faces. We're going to start with Simplify Solid. Now, Simplify Solid removes the faces and edges that are unused within the solid's formation. And this may be caused as a result of us creating a solid from the surfaces, and there were extra surfaces or edges there. In any case, with the Simplify Solid selected, I'm going to select the body. And notice when I move my mouse around, you have a solid and a face. I'm going to select the entire solid and then click OK. No potential simplifications were found, so that's good. Next on the list is Optimize. Now Optimize will attempt to repair, improve, and possibly fix a solid. Now this function only works on a solid, and the solid cannot have any history. So if we had history on this solid, it would prompt you to remove the history first. So again, with Optimize selected, I'm going to select the solid and then click OK. And here we see the number of optimizations made was 221. So what this does is this merges faces and edges. It improves the accuracy of some of the edges, and it can identify and optimize some of the internal blends within the file. Basically, it makes this file seem as if it was designed in Mastercam as opposed to being imported. So we're not going to have as many odd issues with some of the features within this file. I'm going to click OK here, and the last thing I'm going to do is repair small faces. Now, repair small faces uses a tolerance to identify either small faces, edges, things called spikes, sliver faces, and gashes in the body. So if I select this body, you'll see under the Repair Small Faces field, we can choose the type of entity we want to look for and then the tolerance for that entity. I'm just going to accept the default and click OK, and the Mastercam model gets repaired. So at this point, let's just do one more check. We'll go to the Home menu and click on Statistics, and again, I still have one arc and one solid. So the next thing I want to do is remove some of these features that are going to get in the way when we machine. So as an example, this fillet that's in here, although this is great and is probably needed for the model, and if not, maybe it's a cosmetic fillet, we don't necessarily need it here when we machine it, because we'll create this fillet with a bullnose end mill, or a tool that has a radius that fits that. Same for some of these other fillets up here, and same for some of these other fillets down here. So I'm going to click on the Analyze Entity tab, and that's available on the Home menu. And the shortcut for this is F4. It's used often, so I use the F4 function a lot. I'm just going to click on some of these arcs. For example, this arc right here. And you see that this has got a radius of 0.07 inches. And we could look at that value in millimeters instead, and it's got a value of 2 millimeters. So even though we're not going to change the units of this part, and we're going to machine it in inches at this point, we can still look at the values of the analyzed results in metric. So that's 2. That's 2. Let's look at some of these other ones. That's also 2. And then we can look at this one here. So this is 2.5. And that's 2. So you get the idea here. This part has a bunch of different filleted edges with different radii. Now, the interesting thing with the Analyze function here is I can cycle back through them. And if we zoom out a little bit, you'll see them all get highlighted. This is very useful when you want to go back to a previous entity that you already measured. In this case, I'm going to click OK because we now know that these values are in fact different. So the first thing we're going to do here is go to Model Prep And I'm going to use the Modify group, specifically the Remove Fillets. And I want to remove these fillets here. And you can see here that I can click to select a single fillet face, or shift click to select adjacent fillet faces, or control click to select them all with the same radius. I'm going to select on shift click, and you'll notice that all of these get selected. However, we miss this one here and the other one, so I'm just going to single click on these. And what I do is I traditionally select the fillets I want, and then I click OK, and here I'm going to actually choose OK and create new operation because I want to continue using this function. But I don't select all the fillets in this model. I do it piece by piece because if there's an error, it helps me identify that the error, for example, would only be with these selected ones. So let's click OK and create new operation, and they all go away, which looks good. Let's do it again here, shift click, and I'll grab this one as well, and that one as well. So as you can see, we have small faces in here, right? And these faces are created from the fillets. Well, imagine if these faces were very, very, very small, almost to the point where you couldn't see them. That's what this Simplify Solid and the other options up here work with. They clean up files that may have small issues in them that we can't see. So let's click OK and create, and those fillets also disappear. Now for this one here, I'm going to hold down the Control key, and when I select it, you'll notice that many other fillets also get selected. That's because when I selected the Control key, it selected all the fillet faces with the same radius. Well, these all look good. However, I don't want this one here, or this one, or these two in the corner. These are more cosmetic, but since they're the outside shapes, if we were to run a contour toolpath around this, we would want to go around this fillet here, so I don't want this to be sharp. Let's click OK here and see what happens. And it looks like all the fillets disappear, which is what we want. Just note that there's one up here that does not get removed. And this is common too. We may not know what size fillet this is. This may actually not even be defined as a fillet. In other words, it could be a complex surface that looks like a fillet. We can try removing that here by selecting it again, and it does not disappear. So we'll have to remove that manually later on. Let's also remove these fillets right here. And now this model should be cleaned up enough where we can continue working with it. Let's accept out of this, and we'll finish this cleanup by removing this fillet right here. So the way we do that is by actually drawing a shape and cutting away this fillet. So if I look at it from my top view, we're going to draw a shape like this and then cut away that fillet. So the first thing I'm going to do is change my Z value down to this point right here, because that's what I want to draw on. So now you'll see my Z value set to minus 0.15. So at this point, I'm going to go to the Wireframe tab, and I'm going to choose Curve One Edge, because I want to create a curve on one edge of this model. And while I'm here, I'm going to go to the Home tab and make sure the line is pretty thick. I'm going to select that edge. So it creates a curve, in this case a line, right on that edge. I'm going to do the same thing up here. Now notice we don't see that edge, but it's actually hidden because we're in our 2D construction mode. So effectively this edge gets projected down. And if I quickly unshade my model, you'll see that the line is in fact there. So now I'm just going to use the regular line tool and select the two ends of these so they can be connected. Really, we're just creating a shape that can be used as a cut extrude. Now we've used the cut extrude function before, so let's go to solids, click on extrude, and I'm going to select this geometry here. and I do a check here, I'm expecting to see one green arrow and not a green and a red arrow. This tells me that I have a closed contour, which is what I want. I click OK. I'm going to cut body, and I want to cut it up through wall. And when I click OK, you'll see now that that fillet was removed with a cut. Now in this case, if I go in here and I select the Shift key and then this geometry, the entire wireframe piece gets selected. And if I hit delete on my keyboard, it's giving me a warning here because the geometry I'm deleting was used to create a solid extrude, in this case that cut. So if I hit delete all selected entities, it works. However, back in my solids function, we have some issues here. And I'm not too worried about this because this is already an imported file, so I don't have any history to this part. So I can go right into my Model Prep tab and click on Remove History. It automatically selects a solid. I click End Selection, and you'll notice that history is gone. And more importantly, it's just that one feature that was removed. So to recap, in the previous lesson, we brought in this IGES file and turned it into a solid. And in this last lesson, we cleaned up this solid. We used the Simplify Solid function as well as the Optimize and Repair. And then we used the Remove Fillets function within the Model Prep tab to clean up this file. In the next lesson, we're going to explore various features that we can apply to this model to get it ready for machining. So we'll be removing some features and then we'll be adding some surfaces as well to cap off some of these areas.